Santa Cruz has a new Tallboy and, by extension, Juliana has a new Joplin. Now the Tallboy/Joplin was their shorter travel, trail cross-country orientated 29er. And the new generation has changed quite a bit over the old one. Now the old one was a popular bike. It was poppy, it was agile, you could sprint on it, and it was fairly capable in chunkier terrain. But there's been a big departure for this new one in two fronts. First off is the suspension, and second is the geometry. As an aside, if you're wondering why I'm in new surroundings in this white padded cell, well, it's because we've moved studios and our brickwork background is being replaced brick by brick here pretty soon, so we'll be back in our normal look very soon. I'll start with the Tallboy suspension. Now, a year or two ago we saw the shift from the Upper Link suspension VPP system on a number of their bikes to a new Lower Link VPP suspension, most notably on their gravity-orientated bikes. A number of years ago we saw the introduction of Santa Cruz's Lower Link VPP system to some of their more gravity-orientated trail bikes, such as the Bronson and more recently the Mega Tower. The idea of the Lower Link VPP system, whereby the shock is driven by that lower link, is to give a more descent-focused, more progressive stroke that perhaps doesn't pedal quite as well, but is more capable in chunky terrain. The new Tallboy has this Lower Link VPP system, which on the face of it seems a bit odd for a 120mm XC trail-orientated bike, but that should give you an indication of what they're intending the new Tallboy or Joplin to be. Not only has Santa Cruz given the Tallboy this Lower Link VPP system, they've also upped the travel to 120mm from the original 110mm. Up front, there's 130mm of travel from the fork as well. The other thing that Santa Cruz has done is fairly drastically change the geometry of the Tallboy. The previous generation was fairly conservative, and if you look at it in the context of an XC/trail bike, the new one is bang up to date. In the carbon versions of the Tallboy, there are two ways to alter the geometry. There's a little flip chip that's in the VPP linkage, and this is also found in the aluminium bikes. This doesn't make a huge difference to the shape of the bike, but does change the progressivity of the rear shock to give a more progressive ride in its lowest setting. Carbon bikes also get a flip chip in the chainstays, which means you can alter it by 10mm forward or backwards. When talking about the geometry, I'm going to refer to a size large Tallboy, and that's in its low setting with the shorter chainstays. That's because that chainstay length works both in the aluminium and the carbon versions of the bike, and in the low setting because it's probably going to be better. Size-wise, you're going to get a 468mm reach with a 65.5 degree head angle. This is matched to a 76.2 degree seat angle and 430mm seat tubes. The chainstay is 430mm and the bottom bracket is 332mm off the ground. Finally, you've got a standover height of 703mm and a wheelbase of 1211mm. So what is this new Tallboy all about then? The previous generation was an XC trail bike. This new generation still has sort of the shorter travel numbers, but it's clearly a much more radical bike in terms of the way it looks, the way it feels, and the way it should actually act on the trail. They say that it's kind of a genre-bending bike, one that can be still sprinted up those hills, but can hit even more technical, chunky, rough terrain on the way down with much more control and composure. It is in essence a bike that someone who likes a snappy, small little trail bike should really enjoy if they want to go and hit those bigger descents. And that kind of person is very much like me, so this bike should suit what I like riding. Santa Cruz will be offering the Tallboy in 6 different sizes, from extra small to extra large, in both aluminium and carbon. The bikes will come with different length cranks depending on the size of the bike. So an extra small gets 165mm cranks, smalls get 170mm cranks, and the rest of the bikes get 175. I got the bike at the back end of last week, so I haven't had a huge amount of time to go and ride it, so these are very, very brief riding impressions. I rode the Tallboy CC X01 Reserve, which comes in at £7,300 or $8,200. It comes with a RockShox Pike Select Plus fork, their X01 drivetrain, comes with their reserve wheels, which has the carbon 27mm wide rims, and also comes with SRAM's new G2 brakes. The previous generation of the Tallboy was very snappy out the saddle. It's definitely an XC orientated trail bike. The new version clearly has changed somewhat. However, on seated climbs, the Tallboy still climbs very well. Your hips are in a nice position over the cranks thanks to that steeper seat angle, and there's plenty of room in the cockpit thanks to that longer reach. The bike comes with a Fox Float Performance Elite DPS shock, and this has the ability to change the compression settings within the open setting. On longer, smoother climbs, I did flick the switch into one of the climbing settings, however for the most part I left the shock fully open. The suspension feels like it has a reasonable amount of anti-squat, so it doesn't bob too much, although when you get out of the saddle and put more pressure through the cranks, the suspension does dip into its mid-stroke, where it is a little bit more wallowy than the previous version of the bike. On smoother, more pedally descents, I did find that the fully open setting of the shock was perhaps a little bit too open for my tastes. Adding a bit of air helped a bit, but also the ability to adjust the compression setting within the open setting of the fork was really beneficial, and I moved it into the middle setting. This just gives a little bit extra sort of support and control over that shock, so it didn't sort of move around quite so much when I'm putting the power in on flatter, twistier bits of single track. As you'd expect from a shorter travel bike with the more progressive suspension, the bike has got plenty of pop and plenty of control on bigger hits and jumps. On the real rough stuff, you can tell that it is a short travel bike, but not in the way that you're slamming off the bottom of the travel, but more that you're getting towards that end stroke progression a little bit easier. Personally, I quite like that. It gives you a very involved feeling ride to the bike. The RockShox pike up front is a stellar performing fork. The chassis is great, the damping is very good, even on this slightly more basic Select Plus version of the fork. The shape of the bike, again, I don't think they've gone too far wrong with that. A 468mm reach in this low setting or a 470 in the higher setting, personally I think is pretty spot on for an aggressive trail bike. And I think having that shorter travel back end just gives that extra bit of liveliness to the ride. You're not sat on a sofa-like bike. It's a bike that's very reactive to what you're putting in and therefore what you're getting out. On initial impressions, the Tallboy could be fairly impressive. I'm very much looking forward to riding this bike over the next couple of months to get a full view of how the bike actually performs. In the comments, I'm sure you're going to tell me about the price of this bike and how it's so expensive, but we know that Santa Cruz aren't the best value for money bikes out there. What I want to know though is, what do you think about their lower linkage VPP suspension system being used in a shorter travel XC trail bike? Do you think having gravity-inspired suspension in this shorter travel package is a good idea, or do you think they should have kept it to a more traditional, let's sprint out the saddle, keep everything nice and supported there? Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and click the little bell just under the video so you get notifications of all of BikeRadar's new videos.